Well, thanks for joining us on this week's edition of Queenslander as we count down to round 5 of the NRL season. Over the last couple of days, I gave the boys a bit of homework to take home and do. With 1 month of the NRL season gone, we're going to give the school grading system to each of the Queensland teams, the 4 sides. So let's kick it off, boys. If you're given the Broncos a grading, A, B, C, D, E, F, what are you going with? You can kick it off, Wal.
Oh, thanks. Send me into bat. The Broncos have had an interesting start to the season. I think they've gone okay. Change of coach, change of a couple of very important players. So I'll stick with that. I do think that they've still got some work to do, and I think that if they've had one sort of problem, it's been on the injury front. Hasn't been too good to them. The Dolphins. Everybody expected it was going to be a tough year for them, and I still think it could be.
What did you give the Bronx out of A, B, C, D, E, F?
I'd give them an A.
Oh, yeah.
I'd give them an A. I think they've done fairly well. With the Dolphins, as I say, have still got a little bit of work to do, but that's to be expected, I've got to say, and it's probably a little bit too hard of a mark. The Titans, well, I think that Desi wouldn't want to see a rating that's too high to get the players off. I think there's a B+ there, and I think that they've done quite well. And I think that they've made a couple of positional changes which may benefit them greatly over the next couple of years. The Cowboys, a B+ for them. I don't think that they've impressed the coach too much at all.
Yeah, a B+ or a D+?
A B+.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you're going D+, are you?
Yeah, on the back of there. Walls obviously impressed by that win over the Raiders last weekend to kick things off. They have had a tough draw, the Cowboys, I'll give them credit. But Lockyer, what are you going with?
Well, for the Bronx, I mean, a lot of people expected them to be 6-0, right? So they had that blowout against Canberra.
Yeah.
Canberra. I've given them a B because I think their defence has been very good.
Yeah.
Except for Canberra, obviously, but their attack still hasn't fired, 100% yet. But that'll happen. So I give them a B based on that. The Dolphins, look, I reckon even though they haven't won a game, last week against the Broncos, they played well.
Yeah.
I've given them a C-. Right? I think that there's obviously plenty of improvement in it. I think a win's not far away from them. The Titans... after round 1 against the Bulldogs, that was round 2 against the Bulldogs, you thought, well, are the Titans in for another long year?
Yeah.
But the last 2 weeks' performances have, in my opinion, given them a B as well. And then for the Cowboys, C for Cowboys.
Yeah, nice.
I think I reckon they were very good against the Broncos the week before, and they broke through with that win. So I reckon they're playing where they want to be playing, but I guess the next couple of weeks will be important for them.
Well, I've gone very similar. I've gone Cowboys C- based on that dreadful start against Manly and the Sharks, even though they are improving. Titans B-, Dolphins C- too. Like you said, they're just on the edge of the Dolphins. They're not playing too bad. And Broncos giving them a B+. Broncos fans always say I'm too harsh on this show on the Broncos. So I think that's the highest rating. You gave the Broncos a B. I've given the Broncos a B+ there. But room for improvement for the Broncos.
Yeah.
I think in a month's time we can go back and check our assessments to see if they need a regrading.
I need to write mine down.
Yeah, that's it, to keep them all in there. But continually, the big talking point, Wall, in the NRL is DCE and his future. Like, he spoke after that good win for them over the Eels at Brookvale Oval the other day. He said, he mentioned a smear campaign is taking place behind the scenes. What do you make of that? Because they've really attacked his character in the wake of his decision.
That's typical. Put somebody up that's had a wonderful past and a question mark over the future, and then that becoming a lot more clear. It just invites all the experts to come out and sink the boot. A lot of people will suggest that's Manly. That's what happens at the Silvertail territory. They do that to all of their players. They love them while they're there, and when they go, they really do put that boot in.
Yeah.
Well, I guess the question is, like, the only way all this is going to die down is once we know where DC is going.
Yeah.
So the speculation and the hypothetical smear campaign will continue until we know where Daly's going.
Yeah. How difficult do you think will it be for Manly to keep it together while this kind of sideshow continues, given also the fact that Turbo's out now for at least a month?
Well, I mean, I looked at the press conference after the game the other night, and the question will always be on the journalists' lips that, they're going to keep asking.
Yeah.
Right? So it will be a distraction, and I still can't understand why, if Daly, is he now on the open market or has he already done the deal? That's what's starting to confuse me, because if the deal's already done, then why aren't we announcing it?
Get it out of the way and stop it affecting every game that Manly are going to be playing, and putting even more pressure on DCE.
Yeah, he even said the other day he may not make a decision till October, which wouldn't really surprise me if it's that late. But hopefully he makes a decision before Origin time, and he reveals his Maroons future too, because that's up in the air. But if DCE announces his retirement from rep footy, doesn't play for Queensland this series, who do you think is most likely to wear the 7? Do you move Ben Hunt to halfback, or do you get Tom Dearden there to maybe partner Cam Munster, or even Jamal Fogarty, who's doing a decent job at the Raiders?
Well, I'm probably president of the Tom Dearden fan club, and know that he's a wonderfully talented player. Really did impress when he first came into grade, playing at halfback, and has done extremely well playing at 5'8". He's got plenty of talent there, and again, I probably think that he's one of the guys that must be favourite.
Does that work, Munster and Dearden?
Yeah, I think it does, because one of them plays off the cuff, the other one's a bit more of a organised player. I think the other part to this is, if you're considering Hunt at 7, then you need who's the hooker, and probably brings Reid Marnie into the conversation, right?
With Harry Grant to start.
Harry Grant. So I guess that's sort of, if you're moving Hunt, then you need to fill, because he does a wonderful role, what he does. In 9. There's a few combinations, I guess, from a Queenslander's perspective. You just hope that all the people we're talking about are fit and healthy. Yeah. So you've got options.
Good point.
I don't think Dearden and Munster have played together, because all Dearden's origins have been with DCE. He came in, made their debut. Remember, Munster had COVID and couldn't play. And then, obviously, last year's series, Munster was out injured and Dearden played. So
I think they'd complement each other.
Yeah. It'd be good to see Munster back in Origin, just for his craziness that he brings, and he scares the New South Wales defence constantly. What about Billy as a coach? How quickly do you think he would want an answer on DCE? Obviously, he'd allow him as much time as possible, but as a coach, to go one way or the other?
As soon as possible. That's the best way to get calm, cool, and really have some planning in mind. So I guess it's just we're trying to make a guess on when that's going to be, and it's very difficult to come up with it. But the sooner the better in all situations like that.
Yeah. So from a coach's perspective, I mean, the sooner the better, because depending on who you have to pick in the spine dictates on how you play the game.
Yeah.
Right. So. That's probably, and we're talking about the captain of Queensland, the current captain of Queensland. So there's a leadership
in the most important position.
Yeah. So look, I've got no doubt. I haven't spoken to Billy, but I've got no doubt that Billy's in conversation with Daly, and that will continue. But if Daly decides that he's not going to make himself available, then I guess Bill needs to know and then work out who he wants to look at in that position, and that'll dictate how he wants to play.
As selectors, how far out do you look at maybe going plan A, B, C, D? A lot can happen, but you're still a while away? Like, is that a month out, or...?
You're jumping at shadows because, you don't know if there's injuries.
Yeah.
I guess you look at the team that played last year, which just fell short. But, until you get, within a few weeks from game 1, until you know who's available and what form everyone's in, at the moment, like I said, you're making decisions that are too far away from game 1.
Yeah. And a few Titans players, if they continue their form, will be putting their hands up for Origin selection for Queensland this year. While back-to-back wins for the Titans. It's rare that we say that on this show. They beat the Knights and they were comprehensive victors. They good second half against the Roosters. Are they starting to maybe look like a top 8 side?
Yeah, I think they are, Adam. They've certainly been on the improve for a while. And, we were talking about Desi Hasler as coach, his abilities over the last few weeks. But to be able to have a look at the style of play that the Titans have been displaying, I think has been exceptional. They really have been putting a game together which is much different the way it was in the opening 1 or 2 games of the season, where they did appear to be really struggling to have a comfortable game plan in place. They've got that on board now, and they've only got to keep the coach smiling, and that's easier said than done.
And Jaden Campbell, Lockyer was a try scorer in that win over the Roosters. Is he starting to look like a halfback now?
You know what? Like, he just needs to be in the game.
Yeah.
That's what. It reminded me of his dad.
Yeah.
The other night when he's playing at 7, and he's not a structured player. He's just off the cuff, and that makes him dangerous, right?
Yeah.
So and then Brimson was very good at 6 too. So you just have to have Jaden on the field, and like I said, they played. They hung in there when they needed to hang in there, and then when the game at the back end and the fatigue started to set in, then someone like Jaden Campbell becomes a live wire.
Yeah, and Jaden really looked like a kid that had basically been thrown off the bench, in inverted commas, and told to go out there and really display your best, fit in with the game plan. You might know it 101%, but you're displaying some wonderful football that you have the ability to be able to do. His personal performance was fantastic, and I think he's going to inspire those around him, and that's going to make the Titans very difficult to beat.
It creates a bit of a conundrum now that is being a success the past fortnight, Lockie. What do you do with Kieran Foran when he comes back into the team?
Well, we've been talking about this for years. It's the 5 that goes into the 4 at the Titans, and I guess, how far Kinney? When do we know if
Keanu Kinney? Yeah, that's still unknown because he's got a neck injury. That's still yet to be sorted out. So he had Jalen de Groot playing fullback. They've got heaps of fullbacks at the Titans. So they were talking about at the start of the season maybe playing Foran off the bench role, maybe come on, play a bit of hooker or just fill in wherever he needs to be.
I'd do it the other way. I'd start Foran.
Yeah, okay.
Just get a bit of structure going, a bit of arm wrestle going, and then I'd bring whether it's Brimson or Campbell
as a game breaker.
As a game breaker.
Yeah.
So I'd just wait till the game opens up a bit, then I'd bring in someone like Campbell or Brimson.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. I agree with you, Lockie. I hadn't thought of it that way, but to have Foran in there from the start, and he will add some real stability, make them feeling very comfortable to the players around him.
Well, it's similar to starting Hunt at Origin and moving on Harry Grant.
Yeah.
Another player who's been outstanding in his injury comeback, Tino, the captain of the Titans. How impressive have you guys been with the way he's imposed himself? Scored a good try on the weekend as well.
Yeah, I love watching him play. He's a wonderful player. He goes out and he gives his best. He's very well built. He plays a little bit of a different role than he probably was over the last couple of seasons. He's more of a running player that's attacking the holes, and that really does look super impressive. He's a wonderful player, and I think it's going to be fantastic to see him in this form when we're around the representative period.
When they made him captain, I thought, is he too young, right? And I don't know, how old were you when you were made captain? 18?
Where would that been, at Valleys first or Wynnum where you captain first?
Valleys.
Yeah.
I was 21, 22.
Yeah.
And so the first, I guess, when you hand that responsibility to someone so young, obviously they can impact a game. And I thought maybe at the start that was a bit too much for Tino responsibility-wise.
Yeah.
But you can see the benefit now. Even though he had a long time off with his injury, like the last 2 weeks, he's just wanted to impose himself on the game. And I think having the leadership has been, a big part of, his motivation in wanting to impose himself on a game at that point in time.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I've been just extremely impressed with him, the way that he's taken the task at hand and really made life very difficult for the opposition, whilst he improves the confidence level on the coast.
Well, that's going to take us to the halfway mark of our show, which brings up Tab's big call this week. I got mine wrong last week. I think Wally and I went with the Dolphins to beat the Broncos. They were close, but they just didn't get there. So my big call, I'm going to start it off. I'm going to say Suncorp Stadium Saturday night, Selwyn Cobbo scores a hat-trick against the West Tigers. I think Cobbo's just ready to peak. A little bit earlier kickoff, less due around, more conducive to an attacking game. Cobbo 3 tries is my tab big call this week.
Which wing will he be marking? He's right.
He is.
So it's not.
Skelton was playing left, but he did his hamstring the other week for the Tigers.
All right, but okay, well, let's watch that with anticipation. I'm going to go. I think the Cowboys were very good against the Broncos. They broke through against the Raiders. They got a bit of confidence. I reckon even Nathan Cleary's back this weekend.
Yeah, yep.
In Sydney, Cowboys to beat the Panthers.
Oh, there you go, back to back. That is a big call, yeah. I think that's the first game on Friday. Kick off there.
That's a big call, and I like it, Lockie. Love to hear the confidence of that, and I think every Queenslander would love to see that. But I think the Titans clash this week will be an absolute bell ringer. Yep. Absolute bell ringer. It's going to have plenty of spirit, and I think it really will go down to Golden Point.
Oh, Dolphins, Titans, Golden Point.
The Dolphins. I really can see there be a little bit of extra motivation for both teams, and that's certainly going to really lift the spirit of the game, and I think it will improve each and every performance that comes from the boys on show.
Well, I was talking to the coaching staff at the Bronx recently, and the stats that came out of that Dolphins-Bronco game, considering conditions, were very high. That was a high-quality game, so the Dolphins aren't far away. Maybe this week.
Yeah. Fingers crossed.
Imagine when you get that multi. Cowboys to beat the Panthers, Selwyn Cobbo hat-trick, and Golden Point Dolphins into Titans. Yeah. I'll have to get on tab and see what odds they'll give us for that. But maybe if we don't come back next week, we've collected on that multi.
You win some, you lose more. For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.
But, just on that Broncos win in the derby, arm wrestle, as Lockie mentioned, what stood out for you Broncos-wise in that game? Well,
their forwards. I thought they did a wonderful job. They took it upon themselves to be able to lead by example, and whilst there were plenty of people being a little bit critical of previous performances, I thought it was quite outstanding from them. I thought they did a great job.
A couple of big hits too. Paddy Carrigan laid out Gilbert, and poor old Herbie Farnworth copping it in the back from Brendan Piakura.
You know, Queenslander on Queenslander, Bronco on an ex-Bronco. Yeah. It brings feeling. You know, we talk about state versus state, mate versus mate. Yeah. Sometimes the closer, the more you know someone, the more you want to hurt them.
Yeah.
I've been really impressed with Paddy as well, going for the front. No one wanted, when I was playing footy, no one wanted to go up and play in the front row. It was, try and impress the coach as much as you possibly can. But to see the performances, you can understand why he's stayed there. And
Payne Haas also excellent in that game again. Lockie, bit of a talk. Maybe do the Broncos go the 10-year deal angle to Payne Haas? Is that something that potentially could be considered? Or previously, I know you've been against it in the past based on the Jason Tamalolo experiment. It's hard to put that much money long-term into a forward. Look, it's nothing against the individual. Yeah. We both know that both Jason and Payne, extremely great players. Payne's obviously a bit younger. But there's just too much risk involved with a long year deal like that, in particular with a forward. Yeah. So, Payne early on didn't have every week he played. The last year or two he's probably picking up a few niggling injuries. So again, it's nothing against the talent. It's just more around the risk versus reward, and I just think that 10 years is crazy. Yeah. As a player, I would have loved a 10-year contract coming my way to be able to hear the cash register ringing straight away. But I think as the coach and certainly as the men in charge in the office, they'd see that as dangling the carrot in front of him, trying to make sure that he stays desperate to
perform extremely well, and the best way to do that, of course, is having that hunger. I've loved his performances so far. I've had the thrill of watching it, like every Broncos fan, and seeing the way that he manages to do it. And I think that if he stays hungry and determined, the Broncos fans will be celebrating.
Well, he won't be as hungry at the moment anymore because Ramadan's finally finished. So he can eat and drink during the day. So imagine how much better he's going to be have a full tummy fueled up.
But let's see. Like, I'd be interested to know what he weighed last week to what he weighs this week.
Yeah, might have to get into the Broncos to see if we can get a measurement of that. But he's $1 million a year player or thereabouts, Payne Haas. Well, take us back to your day. The first contract you signed professionally, would it have been for Valleys, and how much would it have been worth?
Yeah, it was for Valleys. I signed on for $100. And I thought, you beauty, there's the cash register ringing. And I think at the end of the season, I ended up with about $1,700. $1,700, and I got made an offer for the next 2 years, which were for $5,000 a season. And boy, didn't I think I was rich, clicking the heels together, and I've done this. And in the fourth and fifth year, I played for $7,500. And thought that's as good as it comes. But to have that contract in front of you, your very first contract, you remain hungry the entire season long, and I think that's probably what gave me the inspiration.
Out of interest, would you remember how much would a house cost back in those days?
I can remember I bought my first house for $73,000. It was at Holland Park. Where I got it, and I thought that I was kicking a real goal there, and all the other people in the houses around said, well, they got you. You come in, sucker. So 73 grand, it was, and I bought my next one. I think I paid 93,000 for it. So.
Was that win bonuses as well back? Did you get extra money for winning?
Yeah, you did. You got money for winning, a sign-on, which in those days, I think the first sign-on I got was $500. It might have been. And it went from there. But there were incentives in every contract in the early days.
Well, the rugby league professionalism, in a sense, Lockyer stepped up when that Super League bidding war came between the ARL and Super League. A lot more money proceeded through the game. You were front and centre of that era. What was it like to get the first Super League check?
Well, I was probably a year too late, to be honest, because if you remember, 94 was when it was all starting. Super League was starting to build. And so all the big contracts were starting to get done in 94. Right? I didn't come to the Broncos until the end of 94, and like some of the stories, they're ridiculous. Like there was people like Packer was flying up from Sydney, going to the airport, doing deals at the airport lounges. So Qantas Lounge and Ansett Lounge, and so was Rupert. So you talk to a lot of the old Broncos players, and they're signing up just on a handshake, just having a bit of a conversation with guys in the airports. And it's like, I want this. Okay, you got that. Oh, can I get a little bit of cash? And and it was just it was out of control. It was literally a bidding war. So in 94, I wasn't there. I came in the pre-season of 95, and so I missed all of that. But at the end of the day, in 95, I think there was an injunction, wasn't there? There was an injunction, so put a hold on Super League. And so 95 played, and I signed my first contract I had with the Bronx was for 10 grand in 95, but I was just playing Colts. And then sort of middle way of the year, I got an opportunity because there was injuries in first grade to play first grade. And then middle of 95, I was playing, A grade. And then that's when I got an opportunity to upgrade my contract. I won't say the amount, but let's just say...
A little bit more.
Let's just say as an 18-year-old, it was significant, right? It was significant. But that was the sign of the times. Now, looking back, that created professionalism, but it was also obviously detrimental to the game as a whole. But... but some of the stories were ridiculous, out of control. It was two men with obviously deep pockets wanting to win a war.
Yeah, and no one was willing to back down.
The players were the benefits.
Yeah, I'm sure Alfie did all right out of Super League.
Yes, Alfie's one of them, without a doubt.
Yeah. Moving on, just before we wrap it up to the Cowboys, off the mark with that win over the Raiders. Well, how important was it for them to get that win? We mentioned they were better in that derby against the Broncos, but still didn't get the victory to finally, get that monkey off your back.
Oh, well, that's exactly it, Adam. It's extremely important that you do get it off your back. So often, when there's loss after loss, the damage that it causes to the self-confidence and the trust, even more, the trust between the players, can sometimes reach a very dangerous level. So to get rid of that, I think, really was smiled upon quite greatly.
And Jake Clifford's done quite well in the halves. He scored 2 tries. What's he added to the attack since coming back in?
Oh, well, I thought his kicking game against the Broncos was exceptional. It was, again, very good the other night. And when you got a big boot like that, you can dominate field position, which builds pressure. But I think what impressed me about his game up there was his running game.
Yeah.
He scored a couple of tries, backed himself. So, if he holds that form, the Cowboys become definitely a finals team.
Yeah, I think the part that really became obvious the more the game went, Lockyer, was his vision. He just kept looking, searching for holes in the opposition defence, and when he managed to get away for the try, you could just see that he was full of confidence at that stage, and I think we're going to see a bigger and better performance each week from him.
Yeah, definitely is the strength of his game, his running game, Jake Clifford. And it was nice to see both of the halves score a try running the ball, because Dearden did it right at the end of the game to wrap up that victory against the Raiders. Lockyer, now 2 games in a row in Sydney for North Queensland. Could that be a way you've tipped them to beat the Panthers? Those back-to-back trips a way to galvanise the club a bit?
Yeah, there's probably a fair chance they might stay in Sydney. They've got the Panthers, the Combank, then they've got the Rabbits.
Oh, yeah.
So 2 tough games, but, I know myself, when you go through a bit of a bad run and you can't find a win, you eventually find that first win, you get a bit of fun back and you get a bit of enjoyment and you get a bit of, improved effort. So I think the Panthers, they're a good chance against the Panthers, but if they can win one out of those 2, I think that'll do them the world of good.
Yeah, I'd love to see them chalk up a win over the Panthers, but I don't think that they're going to be all that happy with their own form, and they're going to want to produce their best in a game to repair. It won't be easy. I like to see the Queenslanders do extremely well, but I just think this one's just going to be a little bit too tough.
Yeah. Before we finish, have you picked your 3?
I know. I keep forgetting about doing that.
Have they got to be Queenslanders or Cowboys?
You told me they have to be Queenslanders, because I tried to sneak Ryan Pappenhausen in there. Yeah. One more point I wanted to make on Jake Clifford. He said the toughest part of his transition back is the language barrier he has on his side of the field, because he's got Viliami Vailea, who's Tongan, and he's got John Bateman now and his thick English accent, and Jake Clifford's a born and bred Tully boy with a thick North Queensland accent. So he said, getting that language barrier right.
The last 2 weeks he's played the house down, so he's probably not listening to him.
That's it. Maybe that is the key. Great to see Jake Clifford back in form of the Cowboys. Hopefully another victory this week against the Panthers. Lockie's tipped him, but Friday night footy, you got the grudge match. Our mate Uncle Wayne back in action. The Rabbitohs up against the Roosters.